Kurt Angle and Impact Wrestling. Now, this is a little bit of an old story. This was broken a couple of weeks ago, but it's still something I really do want to talk about. And that is the report that Impact Wrestling reportedly tried to get WWE Hall of Famer Kurt Angle to return to the promotion earlier this year. Now, of course, Kurt Angle has so much history and ties to Impact Wrestling. He's a former 6-time Impact World Champion, and according to PW Insider, Impact officials made a strong pitch to get Angle to return following his WWE departure earlier this year. The idea pitched to Angle is that he would make his return at the Bound for Glory pay-per-view last month, or actually a couple of months ago, back late in October now. There's no word yet why the return didn't happen, why they couldn't pull the deal off, but it was noted in this report that talks stalled for whatever reason. Now, obviously, Kurt Angle most recently has been with WWE, but Kurt Angle was released from his WWE producer role back in April due to the budget cuts associated to the pandemic after WrestleMania. Now, as noted over the summer, Kurt Angle was also quite instrumental in the debut of Matt Riddle, now known just as Riddle, on the main roster. He actually mentioned Kurt Angle in an interview that he was pitched the role by WWE as Matt Riddle's manager, but he turned that opportunity down. Now, he did an interview, as I mentioned, with Sports Illustrated, and mentioned that he turned down the offer to be Matt Riddle's manager because he's focused primarily right now on his physically fit nutrition business. He said, quote, "WWE offered me a job to manage Matt Riddle. Unfortunately, I turned it down. I just have so much going on with my business, physically fit nutrition, and I need to make sure it succeeds before I do anything else." He continued about this. This is when it gets really interesting about a potential Kurt Angle Impact return. He said, "Right now, I can't return to the ring. Could my mind be changed? Yes, for 2 reasons. I'm working on my business and I've been doing a lot of rehab on my body, trying to get myself back to where I'm able to live a healthy lifestyle. I'd been so banged up, my neck, my back and my neck, but I'm making improvements. If I get to the point where I feel I can do it, then I'll probably do it. But right now, I have to focus on my body." Notice what he said there. If I can get to the point where I feel like I can do it, then I'll probably do it. Now, a lot of the time with retired pro wrestlers, a lot of the time, first of all, retirements in pro wrestling mean nothing, because obviously, how many people at this point have we seen come back out of retirements? Even Shawn Michaels, the unbreakable retirement, he broke it. Ric Flair, The Undertaker will be next. He will be next. Retirements, they just don't exist. So Kurt Angle retiring after having his match against Baron Corbin at WrestleMania 35 in 2019, that's not his final match. I personally believe it's not his final match, and those comments that he's just made, what he made in that interview with Sports Illustrated, say to me that he has got a couple of matches left in him. It might just not be with WWE. He might have had his WWE retirement match. That doesn't rule out other matches in the future. Now, he also discussed in his interview with Sports Illustrated that basically his WWE departure was actually a blessing in disguise to allow him to focus on his physically fit nutrition brand. He said, quote, "It was almost a blessing in disguise that WWE released me. The business started picking up orders, and we're at the point where I really need to be here. We have chicken snacks called Chicken Snacks. Would you believe it? And they will be a #1 seller. This will not only be available on Amazon, but also in convenience stores, health food stores, groceries, and bulk stores like Costco and Sam's Club." Now, of course, just a little plug there for Kurt Angle. Of course, when it comes to Kurt Angle, as I mentioned earlier, he has got so much history when it comes to Impact Wrestling. He has so much ties to that promotion. Kurt Angle is an Impact Wrestling Hall of Famer. He was the second guy to be inducted into the Impact Hall of Fame. He last appeared for the company in March of 2016, and earlier, at that time, should I say, when it came to his departure from Impact, the reason he departed Impact was purely to get back to WWE. He said that a million times, even when he eventually did return to WWE in 2017. His sole purpose of leaving Impact wasn't because of the Game of Thrones stuff going on, wasn't because of the craziness and the lack of finances with Impact, TNA at the time. I'm sure that probably had some factor, but that wasn't his driving force to leave. His driving force to leave Impact back in 2016 was, I only have a couple of years left in the ring. As he said, he was very banged up at the time, and he thought, you know what, I want to have these last years in WWE. I know I'm reaching the end of my career. I know I don't have long left in terms of being an active pro wrestler. I want to finish up in the WWE, and that's why he left in 2016. Then he worked specific dates on the independent scene for about 12 months. He says just to basically keep the joints fluid, keep himself physically able to go in the ring. And then he kept reaching out to WWE, said, look, I'm healthy, I'm clean, I'm sober, I've got my head straight. I want to finish my career in WWE. Now, I don't think he thought, he's been open about this, I don't think he thought he was going to go straight into the Hall of Fame. I think he thought he was going to have, he mentioned it on the Steve Austin Broken Skull Sessions podcast or program he did on the WWE Network. He wanted to have the Goldberg run. He wanted to have the Goldberg run in the sense that he wanted to come in, maybe win the Universal Championship, do 3-4 matches a year, but he wanted to keep wrestling and then go into the Hall of Fame. He didn't get that. He kind of got the reverse element of that, and he had to be the GM for the year, and by the time a year had gone past, a year of not wrestling and not being in the ring, he had pretty much really seized up and his body had really broken down to the point of he couldn't go the way he wanted to go when it came to being an in-ring WWE superstar. So eventually he had his retirement match against Baron Corbin at WrestleMania 35. It wasn't the retirement match he wanted. He wanted to face John Cena at WrestleMania. He wanted to be John Cena's first match, and John Cena wanted John Cena to be his last match inside of a WWE ring. It didn't work out that way. I think everyone wanted it to work out that way. John Cena even didn't have anything to do at WrestleMania 35, and he could have been Kurt Angle's last match, but Vince McMahon wanted Angle to put over the younger Baron Corbin. What's that done for him? He's wearing a crown, a cape, and a scepter now on SmackDown, and the gimmick is just so outdated. Don't get me started on the whole King of the Ring, King Corbin gimmick, because it's just not for me. Nevertheless, there is something there. I think there is something there when it comes to a potential Kurt Angle Impact Wrestling return, because he's been teasing it. Back in October. Now, we don't know if this is at the same time, remember. We don't know if this is the same time as these negotiations, but back in October, Kurt Angle posted a picture onto his Twitter account of him holding the old TNA World Heavyweight Championship. It got a lot of people talking, hey, is Kurt Angle going to go back to Impact Wrestling? On top of this is why this is so important. That quote I mentioned with Sports Illustrated, the point that if I get to the point where I feel like I can do it, then I'll probably do it. Well, Kurt Angle released a picture over the last week where he looks like he could do it. He's released a photo on Twitter last week showing off an incredible, quite frankly, physical transformation of his body. The former 6-time TNA World Heavyweight Champion, former WWE Champion, former Olympic gold medalist with a broken freaking neck, adds that he's pumped up about being able to train again and feel great. He said that he feels like he's in his 30s. He said, this was the actual quote, "Damn, it feels good to be able to train hard again, feeling like I'm in my 30s. Now, it's all there. It's all there, right? Everything is in place, I think. Now, obviously, the talks broke down for whatever reason. It doesn't mean it's impossible. Kurt Angle has stated he would return to the ring if he felt physically able to and everything was right. He looks physically able to. His business is taking off. He looks like he could be in demand for another run in Impact Wrestling. It's absolutely possible. Now, a lot of people might say, would Kurt Angle be willing to go back on his WWE retirement, blah, blah, blah. Like I said, retirements mean nothing. Retirements mean nothing in pro wrestling. If the money is right, any pro wrestler will do it. The Kurt Angle is exactly the same. Kurt Angle is exactly the same. If the money is right, he feels physically healthy. If he can plug his business, I really don't think he cares. I think he would probably see the WWE deal in the same way that maybe some other people have, in that was his WWE retirement. That was his last match inside of a WWE ring. Maybe he wants to do an Impact Wrestling retirement. Impact have the money to do it. They have the money to do it. This is why I've been so infuriated about the whole lack of testing and the stories about that have come out over the last few days, is that Impact has the money. They are owned by Anthem, they're backed by Anthem, they appear on a television cable network that the company Anthem owns. They are really well backed. The finances are no problem there. If Scott D'Amore and Don Callis, if they went to Anthem and said, look, Kurt Angle is interested, he's interested in coming back for a couple of dates, a couple of matches, we can put over some big stars and get a bit of a bump from having Kurt Angle come in, an Impact legend, Anthem would be like, okay, we've got the money, let's do it. And it's not like this is any schmuck coming in that doesn't have history or some WWE reject. One, it's Kurt Angle. The guy's a legend. He's an icon in pro wrestling. If his career was longer without the neck injuries, he would be on the Mount Rushmore. And two, he's got so much history with Impact. For a period of time, Kurt Angle was Impact Wrestling. He really did legitimize it. After Sting coming from WCW, after WCW folded, not going to WWE, and instead working with TNA back in the early 2000s, Sting made the company legitimate, but Kurt Angle really took it up another level. He did. Now, did he take it to the level that he probably wanted to? Absolutely not. I think he thought they were going to legitimately compete with WWE. We know that didn't happen, but they got to a pretty good level. That was because of Kurt Angle. Kurt Angle going from WWE, getting released by WWE in 2006, and WWE thought he would be back in about a year or so. Instead, he jumped straight to TNA, and he does very, very well for himself, but he did well for the company too. And he stayed there for 10 years. He stayed there for 10 years. He came in 2006, he left in 2016. He put 10 years of his life and his career into that company when a lot of people thought he wouldn't do that. So he has so much history with that company. Now, as I mentioned, did it end the way he wanted it to end in WWE? Of course it didn't. Of course it didn't end that way. And maybe he wants to right that wrong. Maybe he wants to prove to himself, to Vince McMahon, to the fans that, you know what, it should have ended the right way and he could have given a better performance and they should have allowed him to wrestle longer and they should have allowed him to get himself physically ready first. And maybe he wants to right that wrong, and he can do that and right that wrong by coming back into Impact for a couple of matches. Quite frankly, I mentioned that he was with Impact for 10 years. He was with Impact Wrestling longer than he was with WWE for. He came in, made his WWE TV debut in 1999. He was gone in 2006. He was only there for 7 years. He was there for 10 years in Impact. Now, everyone always considers Kurt Angle to be a WWE guy. I do as well, but quite frankly, he's probably more of an Impact guy. He put more time of his career into the run in Impact than he did in WWE. Was it as memorable as his WWE run? Probably not, especially the last few years. But Kurt Angle did a significant amount in Impact Wrestling, and it can't be forgotten. And I think Kurt Angle was one of these guys that, whilst people do talk about him in WWE and the great things he did in the Attitude Era in WWE, he is one of those guys that TNA has always mentioned when it comes to Kurt Angle, because you can't ignore it. You can't put that amount of time into the company and it not be brought up whenever people are discussing your career and your legacy. His matches against AJ Styles and Samoa Joe, they're legendary. They're legendary. Impact Wrestling's biggest pay-per-view buy rate they ever did had Kurt Angle in the main event with Samoa Joe at Lockdown. Some of the best matches I think I've seen are Kurt Angle versus AJ Styles every time they did it. They did it about 1 million times, and every time it was genius. This is a deep cut. I really liked it when Kurt Angle faced off against Nigel McGuinness in Impact Wrestling, right, with the Desmond Wolfe deal. I loved all of that. I even liked the Kurt Angle Mr. Anderson feud in TNA. He did so much great stuff. He really did so much great stuff in Impact Wrestling, and was part of it sometimes marred with the personal issues and the substance abuse issues that was going on during his time. Yeah, it was, but he would be open in saying Impact really did allow him and hire him when maybe no one else would. They allowed him to get through that, and they provided him an income and a job for that. Did they maybe facilitate it? That's only he would know. He would know. Nevertheless, he has such a history with the company, with Impact Plus being their streaming service, getting Kurt Angle in the door, talking about these old matches, these old rivalries, these old feuds. There's so much they could do. There is so much they could do if Kurt Angle comes in for one more run with Impact Wrestling. And I'll be honest, a couple of months ago or a year ago, I'd have said, you know what, impossible, not going to happen. He's retired. He finished up in WWE, he finished up the way he wanted to finish up. At the time, he was a producer as well for WWE. I would have said it's not happening. It's just not happening. He's not leaving. His body's too banged up and he knows it. But things have changed. In the last year, 2020's been a dumpster fire, but things have changed. Physically, he's in the best shape he's been in at least probably 20 years. Legitimately, probably 20 years. He's got a brand to promote. He seems healthier. He seems happier. And if the money's right, he would be open to it. So I don't think it's an impossibility. Just because these talks broke down for the Bound for Glory return doesn't mean that it's not going to happen. And I look at the roster that Impact has, and we know a lot of people are potentially out the door when it comes to their contract. We're going to be doing another video on that today on the channel. But I look at the roster that they have, and there are some names that I'm really interested in seeing Kurt Angle face off against when it comes to Impact. I really want to see Kurt Angle versus Ace Austin. I think that is going to be a phenomenal match if they can pull that off. Kurt Angle, Chris Bay, I think that's great. I think you've got to look at if Kurt Angle comes back in, he's got to put over the younger talent and try and give some people a rub. Ace Austin and Chris Bay, they're two names that spring to mind. Another one, this isn't a young talent at all, but I'd love to see Angle versus Shamrock. I know that might not be the most amazing match if we actually saw it on TV and actually experienced it in front of us. It could be a complete train wreck. But they're legends, they're icons, they're two TNA legends, they're two Impact Wrestling icons. I'd love to see it. I think as an attraction, that'd be a massive attraction. Imagine that Slammiversary. How about celebrating your Slammiversary, your anniversary of the day that you were founded, by having Ken Shamrock, the first ever World Heavyweight Champion in the promotion's history, and Kurt Angle, arguably one of the biggest stars to ever sign with Impact Wrestling and so much history with the company. Why not? I mean, that would be what an attraction that would be. And if you can get people like Ethan Page to stay, of course we don't know the situation with his contract right now, but if you can get Ethan Page to stay, how great would that be? Kurt Angle, Ethan Page. My point being, I think the whole point of this video is that yes, the talks broke down at Bound for Glory, and yes, ultimately, Kurt Angle did not return to Impact Wrestling at Bound for Glory. Nevertheless, I don't think it's impossible. I don't think it's impossible. And a year ago, I would have told you it's absolutely impossible, not going to happen. Now, anything can happen. This year has proved that anything can happen. One more world title run, maybe he does get the Goldberg treatment, only it's in Impact Wrestling. Maybe he gets the Goldberg run that he wanted. Instead of it being in WWE, it's in Impact Wrestling. Gets a world title run, a couple of matches, and then retires. He did his WWE retirement. Why not do an Impact Wrestling retirement? It's food for thought. It's food for thought. Like I said previously, I'd have laughed you off and said, not happening, impossible. Now, it's really not impossible. It's really not impossible. It isn't. We know the Impact tapings, they do the marathon tapings. Kurt Angle wouldn't be wrestling at all of them. He might not even be appearing at all of them. But those Impact tapings, they're what, 2, 3, 4, 5 days a month? That's it. I mean, they've just done all their tapings at the end of November for the rest of 2020. Kurt Angle's talking about how busy he is with his own company. That's why he couldn't come back to do a WWE run as Matt Riddle's manager. But maybe he could spare 3, 4 days of the month to do these Impact tapings. Maybe even less than that. It's possible. It's possible. The Impact schedule is very light. Anthem can afford to put this deal together. We don't know why the talks broke down. I don't know if it is money. I don't know if it is dates. We'll have to wait and see. Nevertheless, it's not impossible. It's not impossible, and he's open to it. If the biggest hurdle of these situations, Jim Ross says it all the time, cash, creative. They can get the cash right. They can get the creative right. He seems like he's open to it. And just because the talks broke down earlier this year when it comes to the Bound for Glory appearance, it doesn't mean it's impossible. The fact that they're talking alone means the lines of communication are open. And as long as those lines of communication are open, anything can happen. Anything can happen. So I wouldn't rule out a Kurt Angle return to Impact. I just wouldn't. I think it's an absolute possibility. But of course, as always, this is just one man's opinion. What are your thoughts on Kurt Angle maybe some way down the line returning to Impact Wrestling for one more run or one more match? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I'll do my best. I'll do my best. We get a lot of comments now, but I'll do my best to respond and reply to all of your comments. Really enjoy interacting with you guys, chatting about Impact Wrestling. Of course, it's Tuesday. It's Impact on Access TV Day, so it's Impact Tuesday, so be sure to leave a comment below. I'll do my best to respond and reply to all of your comments. Really enjoy interacting with you guys, chatting about Impact. If you have enjoyed this video, please do smash a like on the like button. Really just help us out here on YouTube. Go up the rankings and get into people's recommendation feeds if they haven't seen our videos previously. But most importantly, if you haven't already, please do subscribe to Wrestle News 365. You can do that by clicking the bottom right hand corner of the screen right now, or if you wait a few seconds, there'll be a subscribe button at the end of this video along with another video for you to watch. Thank you very much for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today, and I'll speak to you again very, very soon. Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.